Dad, I need $220,000 by noon tomorrow. My daughter Linda slid the papers across my dining room table like she was dealing poker, and these aren't the kind of people you keep waiting. Her husband Gerald didn't even look up from his phone. Yeah, Eugene, don't be late with it. I just smiled and said, okay. 4 hours later, I was on a plane to Florida. My name is Eugene Foster, I'm 58 years old, and I own 8 family restaurants across Ohio and Indiana, built them from nothing over 30 years. Thought I'd raised a daughter who understood hard work. Turns out I was dead wrong. Let me back up to Tuesday evening when this whole thing started. The doorbell rang 3 times, each ring getting more demanding. I put down my coffee and the monthly reports from our Dayton location. Through the window, I could see Linda's white BMW in my driveway. She only rang like that when she needed money. I walked to the door past all those family photos on the wall. Linda at 8 helping me paint our first restaurant. Linda at 18, graduating high school. Linda at 28, her wedding where I paid for everything. Looking at them now, I wondered if I'd been fooling myself all these years. Linda stood there with that fake smile she'd perfected. Gerald was behind her, scrolling through his phone like he was checking sports scores. Neither one looked happy to be there, Dad. Linda hugged me, holding on just a little too long. The hug felt rehearsed. Gerald brushed past us without saying hello, his expensive shoes clicking on my hardwood as he headed straight for my recliner. I followed them into the living room. Linda kept adjusting her designer purse, the $3,000 one I'd bought her last Christmas. Gerald spread documents across my coffee table like he owned the place. Linda sat on the edge of my couch, touching the gold necklace I'd given her for her 30th birthday. She always did that when she was about to ask for something big. Want some coffee water? I offered. Let's just cut to the chase, Eugene, Gerald said, not looking up. Eugene, not Mr. Foster, not even Dad, though I'd been paying his bills for 6 years. Linda's voice went high. Dad, you know we wouldn't come here unless it was absolutely necessary. You always said family comes first. What happened to that consulting business you started? I kept my voice level. Gerald finally looked up. Market changed. That's not why we're here. Linda started spinning her wedding ring. My mother's ring, she'd done that since she was 12 whenever she lied. Gerald's been working so hard on this new thing. Tech startup, very promising. How much? The grandfather clock ticked. Gerald's cologne filled the room. Linda's heel tapped on the floor. It's really not much for someone with your assets. Gerald said, leaning back in my chair, $280,000 in our account by noon tomorrow. The room spun. $280,000. Not $28,000, nearly 300 grand like she was asking for lunch money. I started remembering things. Teaching Linda to count the till when she was little, her college graduation, walking her down the aisle. When did that sweet kid turn into this? Dad, we wouldn't ask if there was any other way, Linda said, dabbing at her eyes. No actual tears, though. The mortgage, the kid's private school, everything's so expensive now. I knew about expensive. I paid those school bills directly. $12,000 per kid per semester at St. Mary's, the mortgage on their Westerville house where I'd covered the $85,000 down payment 3 years ago. Gerald got up and walked to my bar without asking. He poured 3 fingers of my 18-year-old bourbon. These aren't bank people we're dealing with, Eugene. They're serious. Would hate for this to mess with your restaurants. That was a threat. Clear as day, my head started pounding. Dad, you look pale, Linda said. Not worried, calculating. Then she said the words that changed everything. If Mom were still alive, she'd be ashamed of how you're treating us. That hit like a punch. Linda knew exactly what she was doing. Carol and I divorced 8 years ago, but Linda still used her memory like a weapon. Never mind that Carol lived happily in Naples with her new husband. Never mind that Carol had warned me about Linda's games years ago. Your mother would have told you both to get jobs. Gerald laughed from my bar. Jobs? I'm an entrepreneur, Eugene. I create opportunities. 3 failed businesses in 5 years. A crypto disaster I'd warned him about. The consulting firm with 0 clients, I'd funded every single one. You missed Sophie's recital. Linda switched tactics and Max's soccer game, but you have time for restaurant paperwork. Those reports kept their kids in private school, kept their BMW running, kept their fancy address. But I didn't say that. Let me get this straight, I said. You need $280,000 by noon tomorrow. For what? Linda and Gerald looked at each other. Gerald shuffled his papers. Real estate deal. Time sensitive. You just said your business failed. Gerald's hands went white on the papers. This is different. This is crypto. I mean guaranteed returns. Crypto. Not real estate. Same lie that cost them $75,000 8 months ago. Linda's phone buzzed. She typed fast, then put it face down. Dad, we've always been there for you. When you and Mom split, who supported you? When COVID almost killed the restaurant business, who helped? You were in Cabo that whole summer, posted about it every day. That's not fair. I started adding in my head, the wedding $65,000, house down payment $85,000, Gerald's first startup $90,000, the second $45,000. The crypto mess $75,000, almost $400,000 over 6 years. Now they wanted another $280,000. These aren't debts, Eugene. Gerald stepped closer. These are obligations. Serious people, serious consequences. Your restaurants, your reputation, everything you built. Are you threatening me? We're being realistic, Linda said. We need this by noon tomorrow. Non-negotiable. I looked at them both. My daughter who'd become a stranger. Her husband who'd never been anything but a leech. Fine, tomorrow, now get out. Linda thought she'd won. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. Gerald stuck out his hand. I didn't shake it. Family first, right, Dad? Linda said, grabbing her purse. They left. I watched their BMW disappear down Maple Street. I waited 5 minutes, then called Howard Wells, my lawyer and friend for 25 years. They crossed the line? He answered. $280,000 by noon tomorrow. The paperwork's ready. They don't know Linda's name was never on that house deed. What about Carol? She's been waiting for your call. I hung up and went straight to my home office. My head had stopped pounding. Now I felt clear, focused. My laptop showed an email from 3 weeks ago. Beachfront condo rental, Naples, Florida, March 15th through April 15th. Your reservation is confirmed. I called Southwest Airlines. The morning flight could be moved to 6:45 a.m. First class available for 1 passenger. My safe opened with a combination I'd never shared with anyone, not even Linda. Inside were 15 years of financial records. Every check, every transfer, every loan that never got paid back. All organized in labeled folders like I was running an audit. Gerald's signed promise from December, swearing this would be the last time. Linda's Instagram posts from the past year all printed out. Shopping trips to Easton Town Center. Expensive dinners downtown. Weekend getaways to Chicago, all while claiming they were broke. I found an old Amazon box in the garage, started filling it with documents. First, the deed to their house. Second, the complete loan history, $397,000 over 6 years. All documented. Third, legal papers Howard had prepared months ago, hoping we'd never need them. At the bottom, a USB drive. Tonight's security footage from the cameras I'd installed after someone broke into the Dayton restaurant last year. Everything was recorded. Linda's fake tears. Gerald's threats, their whole performance. On top, a note, you wanted it by tomorrow. Here's what you're really getting. Packing took 20 minutes, 1 suitcase. Florida clothes, important papers, medications. I sent Norman Stone an email. He managed our biggest location in Columbus. Family emergency. You're in charge. Details later. I stood in my hallway looking at our family portrait from 3 years ago. We'd taken it at the original restaurant's anniversary party. Linda looked happy then. Maybe she actually was. In my bedroom, I took off my Ohio State class ring. Linda used to play with it when she was little, spinning it around my finger. Into the box it went. My phone showed 3 texts from Linda, deleted without reading. Gerald called twice. Those voicemails could wait forever. Time for the call I'd been dreading. Carol answered on the first ring. Eugene? Howard told you, are you really doing this? Should have done it years ago. She's still our daughter. She's not the daughter we raised. Carol was quiet. Then, no, she's not. The girl we raised would never threaten her father. We said goodbye. Carol understood what Linda had become. Maybe mothers see it first. At 11:30, I stood in my kitchen looking at the refrigerator, covered with my grandchildren's drawings. Sophie's stick figures of Grandpa and me fishing. Max's crayon picture of our Columbus restaurant with Grandpa's work written in kid handwriting. I took the fishing picture, folded it careful, put it in my wallet. The kids weren't part of this mess. They didn't ask for parents like Linda and Gerald. I set the box on my front porch table where they'd see it first thing. The doorbell camera would catch their faces when they opened it at noon, expecting money and finding truth instead. Alarm set for 4:30 a.m. 6 hours until my new life started. 7.5 hours until theirs fell apart. The alarm went off right on time. I never hit snooze anymore. Learned that habit from 30 years of running restaurants. Coffee was already programmed. Colombian dark roast. The kind Linda always complained was too strong when she still came for breakfast. I drove past their house in Westerville. All dark. They were sleeping, probably dreaming about spending my money. The streets were empty except for garbage trucks starting their routes. I took Highway 33 toward the airport, passing 3 of my restaurant locations. The Dublin one still had my photo in the window. Norman would have to take that down. At the airport, I checked in with Michelle at the Southwest counter. She'd helped me with business trips for years. Florida today, Mr. Foster, change of plans. Everything all right? Better than it's been in years. I didn't look back at my car in long-term parking. That Toyota had driven Linda to her wedding, Gerald to countless bars, me to the bank too many times. Norman could deal with it. Security was empty at 6 a.m. The TSA guy recognized me. Where to today? Somewhere warmer. Business or vacation? Neither. Personal. Gate 14 was quiet. I got coffee from the shop there. Kelly, the barista, knew my usual order. Medium dark roast, no room. Make it large today. Special occasion. You could say that. I sat at the gate, coffee warming my hands. My phone showed the final count. 7 missed calls from Linda, 3 from Gerald, 12 text messages. I powered it off completely. Took out the SIM card, dropped both in the trash. First-class passengers started boarding at 6:30. The gate agent scanned my ticket with her usual smile. The jet bridge stretched ahead. Each step felt lighter. I settled into seat 2A, window on the left. Accepted the coffee they offered, unusual for morning but perfect for this moment. Other passengers filed past. A young couple heading to their honeymoon reminded me of Carol and me 35 years ago. A businessman typing on his laptop, chasing some deadline that seemed so important. The captain announced a slight delay. My chest tightened. Had Linda figured it out early? The door opened, but it was just a late passenger rushing to economy. Takeoff was smooth. Austin climbing below, the hills and lakes I'd called home shrinking to nothing. Somewhere down there, Linda's alarm was going off. In 5 hours, she'd be at my empty house. In 6 hours, she'd find the box. In 7 hours, everything she thought she knew would be gone. The flight attendant came by with breakfast menus. Business or pleasure? I thought about it. Justice. She laughed like I'd made a joke. If only she knew. By the time we hit cruising altitude, I was having the first peaceful breakfast I'd had in months. No phone calls, no demands, no threats. Just coffee and quiet sky, flying toward a life where nobody expected me to write checks instead of earning respect. I learned what happened next from Howard, who got the whole story from my neighbor Mrs. Patterson and the security cameras. At exactly noon on Wednesday, Linda and Gerald pulled into my driveway expecting to collect $280,000. Instead, they got the education of their lives. Howard sent me the footage 3 days later. I watched it from my condo balcony in Naples, waves crashing in the background, while my daughter's world exploded on my laptop screen. The timestamp showed 11:58 a.m. when Linda's BMW turned onto Maple Street. She was early, probably eager to get her hands on the money. Gerald sat in the passenger seat, checking his phone like he was tracking basketball scores, probably planning his next bet. They walked to my front door like they owned the place. Gerald carried his empty briefcase, the $8,000 Hermes one he'd bought with my January loan. Linda applied lipstick in her car mirror first, same red shade she'd worn to ask for her first car at 16. Linda rang the doorbell at 12:02. Normal ring, not the demanding triple tap from Tuesday night. She waited exactly 10 seconds, then rang again, longer this time. Gerald cupped his hands against the kitchen window. "Car's gone," Linda said, loud enough for Mrs. Patterson to hear from her garden next door. "So what?" "He's got the Buick and the truck," Gerald said. "Lights are on timers. They tried my front door at 12:05. Linda's keys scraped against the lock. Couldn't get purchase. Howard's guy had changed them at 7 a.m., 3 hours after I'd left for Florida. Gerald spotted the box at 12:07. Just a regular Amazon package sitting on my porch table. Nothing special except Linda's name written across the top in black marker. She opened it casual, probably expecting some late birthday gift. The first thing she pulled out was the deed to their house. Her face changed like time-lapse photography. Confusion to disbelief to horror in about 3 seconds. She dropped it. Gerald snatched the paper before it hit the ground. "What do you mean it's in his name?" Gerald's voice carried across the yard. Linda pulled out the spreadsheet next. Every payment, every loan, every gift documented. $397,000 over 6 years, not including the house down payment. Her hands shook as she reached the bottom line. The photos came next. Gerald at Rivers Casino last Tuesday, timestamps clear, his losses written all over his face. Then the promissory note he'd signed in December, swearing that money was the last he'd ever request. Linda's text messages to her friends, all printed out and highlighted. Dad's too pathetic to say no. He'll cave, he always does. And my personal favorite, I deserve this money more than he does anyway. At 12:15, Linda's phone started buzzing. First credit card decline, then another, then another. Chase, American Express, the Nordstrom card I'd been paying for. All suspended, all canceled at midnight while she slept. Gerald tried calling someone at 12:18. His bookie Howard found out later. Guy told him credit extensions needed collateral, not promises. Linda collapsed on my porch steps, her designer dress crumpling against the concrete I'd had resurfaced last summer. She found the USB drive at 12 to 20, plugged it into her phone with shaking fingers. Her own voice echoed from the tiny speaker, clear as day. Just take whatever he gives you. He's too pathetic to say no. Then Gerald's voice, these aren't bank people, Eugene. They're serious individuals. The prenup appeared last. Page 47 highlighted in yellow, gambling addiction clause circled in red. Immediate forfeiture of marital assets if gambling debts exceeded $50,000. Gerald had blown past that threshold 3 years ago. Gerald threw his briefcase at my door at 12 to 23. The handle snapped off, expensive leather scattering across my porch. Linda's sobbing became audible on the recording. Not the pretty tears from Tuesday, but raw, ugly sounds of someone realizing they'd played themselves. Mrs. Patterson came outside at 12:25, all 5 feet of her holding her phone like a weapon. I'm calling police if you don't leave. This is private property. This is my father's house. Linda screamed, mascara creating abstract art on her cheeks. Not anymore. Mr. Foster sent me the transfer notice this morning. You're trespassing. Gerald stormed to the car at 12 to 27, leaving Linda to gather the scattered papers. Her inheritance was now just litter on my porch. She left some behind. The wind could have them. Gerald peeled out, leaving tire marks on my driveway that the property manager could bill to their account. At 12 to 31, exactly when Linda discovered her free ride had ended, I was ordering grouper at a beachside restaurant in Naples. The waiter asked if I was celebrating something. Graduation, I told him. Your kid? Mine, Howard called Monday with the rest. Linda came back Sunday morning with a locksmith who refused the job once he verified ownership. She tried climbing my fence until the security company showed up. Police gave her a trespass warning. Gerald never came back. Howard heard he'd moved to Dallas with his brother. Divorce papers were already filed. But here's the part that surprised me. Tuesday afternoon, Linda showed up at our Dublin restaurant. Norman called me, said she looked like she'd aged 10 years in 4 days. What's she want? Says she needs to talk to you about a job. What kind of job? Any kind. Says she'll wash dishes if that's all we got. I told Norman to give her an application like any other candidate. No special treatment. She could earn her way up like everyone else, or she could leave, her choice. The credit card companies started calling her Wednesday. Chase wanted their balance paid in full. American Express suspended her account. Even her Starbucks card stopped working. Her Facebook posts that week told the whole story, each one deleted within hours, but screenshots live forever. Betrayed by family. When your father chooses money over blood, selling designer bags, serious offers only. The comments weren't what she expected. Her cousin, didn't you just post from Chicago last week? High school friend. Thought your dad paid for everything. Former coworker. Weren't you the one who quit after you got married? While Linda's world crumbled in Ohio, I sat on a beach in Florida learning to fish from a 12-year-old Cuban kid named Carlos who didn't know I owned anything more than the fishing pole I'd bought at Walmart. 3 weeks after the box incident, Linda started working at our Dublin restaurant, hostess position, $12 an hour plus tips. Norman said she showed up every day at 40:45 for her 5 p.m. shift, never complained, never mentioned being the owner's daughter. Her first day, she wore a Target blouse and pants from Walmart. The designer clothes were long gone, sold to pay rent on a studio apartment in Hilliard. No more BMW. She rode the bus, transferred twice to get to work. Norman watched her like a hawk those first weeks. She's different, he told me during one of our weekly calls. Polite to customers, helps bus tables without being asked. Actually says thank you when people tip her. Think it's an act, maybe at first? But you can't fake humble for 3 months straight. The apartment in Hilliard was a far cry from Westerville. 600 square feet above a dry cleaner, $650 a month. Shared laundry in the basement. No dishwasher, no central air. Linda posted a picture of it on Instagram once, then deleted it an hour later. Gerald resurfaced in Dallas working at his brother's car lot, selling used Hondas for $300 a week plus commission. He called Linda twice before she blocked his number. The divorce went through uncontested in May. April brought Linda's first real test. A family came into the restaurant, kids running around, parents stressed about the wait time. Old Linda would have been annoyed, maybe made comments about controlling your children. New Linda got down on their level, gave the kids crayons, told them stories while their parents relaxed. You're good with kids, the mother said when they left, handing Linda a $20 tip on top of what they'd left for the server. Linda called me that night. First time we'd spoken since the porch incident. Dad, her voice sounded smaller. Not weak, just real. Hello, Linda. I wanted to call before, but I didn't know what to say. How's work? Hard. My feet hurt every night. but I'm learning things like what? How to actually work, how money costs something, how to treat people who aren't giving me stuff. She worked 5 nights a week at the restaurant, picked up weekend shifts, bussing tables at another place in German Village. 60-hour weeks, bringing home maybe $400 after taxes, just enough to cover rent, groceries, bus fare. Her Instagram changed completely. No more luxury shots. No more complaints about being tired or bored. She posted pictures of books from the library, meals she'd cooked on her single burner, sunset walks because they were free. June brought the biggest change. Linda enrolled in community college, business management classes, night school 3 times a week after her restaurant shifts. She wanted to understand how businesses actually worked, not just how to spend their profits. Why business management, I asked during one of our monthly calls. Thought maybe someday I could run one of the restaurants, really run it. Not just show up for the money, that takes years of learning. I've got time, and I've got a lot to make up for. Her first semester grades came back in August, 3 A's and a B. She sent me a picture of her report card, first time she'd been proud of school performance since high school. The real test came in September. Linda's bank account finally got to $2,000, first time in her life she'd saved money, instead of spending it. Her apartment air conditioner died during a heat wave. The repair would cost $800. Old Linda would have called me, demanded I fix it as a family emergency. New Linda bought a window fan for $30 and sweated through 2 weeks until she could afford a used window unit. Why didn't you call? I asked when she told me about it later. Because it was my problem, not yours. October marked 6 months since the box. Linda had saved enough to move to a better apartment, one with working appliances and a parking space. She invited me to see it when I flew back to Ohio for our quarterly business meetings. The apartment was small but clean. She'd furnished it with pieces from Goodwill and Facebook Marketplace. A card table served as both desk and dining room. But she'd hung up family photos, including one of us from her high school graduation. I kept thinking about that day, she said, looking at the photo. How proud you looked. I wanted to earn that look again. We had dinner at her card table. Spaghetti with sauce from a jar, salad from a bag, garlic bread from the frozen section. Best meal we'd shared in years. Gerald came by last month, she said, over dessert, which was store-brand ice cream. What did he want? Money for a sure-thing investment. Said we could get back together, start over. What did you tell him? That I'd rather bus tables for the rest of my life than go backwards. December brought her first Christmas as a working adult. She'd saved up to buy small gifts for her kids, things they actually needed instead of expensive toys they'd forget. Clothes for school, books for reading, art supplies. I can't buy them much, she said when she dropped off the presents. You're giving them something better. You're showing them how to work for what they want. Linda smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in years. Funny how the best gifts don't cost anything. She was right. Watching my daughter become the person I'd always hoped she could be, that was worth more than all the money I'd ever spent trying to buy her love. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to discover they're stronger than they knew, even if they hate you for it at first. The hardest lesson I ever taught cost me $200 and nearly lost me my daughter. But watching her discover she could stand on her own 2 feet, that was priceless. I spent 30 years building restaurants and 32 years raising a child. Turns out the most important ingredient in both was knowing when to stop serving and let people feed themselves.